Well, I went with my folks. They moved to another place and another little house, and we went with there with them. I think that's the winter. Yeah, that's the winter that there wasn't a thing to do. We couldn't find anything to do, and people the county was hauling people out of there if they had any place to go, and so we had a place that we thought was a pretty good place to go, and we told them about it, and they took us, and we all went. I went along, and me and my wife went with them, and it was only about 100 miles from her folks, so we went with them, and we went down there and went to Salina, Oklahoma, and this truck, well, it wasn't a big old truck. It was a Chevrolet, and I don't remember what model it was, but it wasn't, let me see, it was probably about a 28 or 29 model Chevy. We thought it was a big truck. Anyway, they had single tires all the way around. I remember that well enough. But the tires were brand new. It belonged to the county, and we loaded his truck. He just backed in there, and I don't remember what he done now, but we loaded the truck ourselves. And my brother-in-law, my stepdad's daughter's husband, and her and them, they mom always kept lots of food around. She had 5-gallon cans of lard, and she had flour, and she had cans of beans and stuff like that, and we just stacked the whole bottom of his truck full of stuff, and it was heavier, a lot heavier than he thought that it was. And my mom, we had moved a lot in all my lifetime up to that time. She knew how to pack stuff. She packed it, and we put it in there, and believe me, when we got all loaded, it had sideboards and everything on it. Went way up there, 4, 5, maybe 6 feet tall. I don't know, but when we got done, there wasn't any place for us to ride. Now, Mom and the little one or let's see, one, well, I think one or two of the little kids rode up in the cab with the guy there, and we went. We rode right out on top of that thing. We had the quilts and we had our cotton sacks and whatever up there on top of that truck. And we had some cold weather. We had some weather before we got down there where it was pure ice. I mean, there was ice all over the roads, and that truck would slip and slide, and we were scared, but there wasn't much we could do about it. So the guy wanted to see, it was a little farther than he thought. It wasn't, the distance wasn't any farther, but somehow or another, when we got started, it took him longer or something, and he wanted to just pull out there somewhere and unload us and go back. So Mom wouldn't let him. She told him, said, no, you're going to take us where we're supposed to go. And so he did. He finally did. Anyway, he took us on down there where we were supposed to go, and we went to Salina, Oklahoma. And they didn't even know we were coming down there or anything. So as soon as we got there and went to the store, they run the store all the time. They had stores in little towns all over there. The Bynums did, Bynum's cash stores. And so they were Mama's cousins. So we went in there, and they said, well, we'll see if we can't find you a house somewhere around here right quick. And so they asked a few people there in the store, and somebody said, yeah, there's a house over there empty you can rent. And I think I know one you can rent over there. And we went and looked about it, and we got it. We rented it, and we got that truck unloaded and let the guy take off. And boy, we lived there in Salina for quite a little while after that. Anyway, when we moved away from that place, the folks, they went, I believe they went to Locust Grove. They went down what they call Blue Holler. They went to a place called Blue Holler. It was about 5 miles south of Locust Grove, down in there somewhere, and we moved up kind of on the east side of Salina there. We moved up there in a little place they called it the barn or the tin shed or something. It had a tin roof on it, I remember. it wasn't a barn, it was a little house, and we moved up there, and we stayed there for a while. I don't even remember how long we stayed there, but I know when my wife was pregnant there with our third child, which was a little boy, that was Johnny. But when she was pregnant there, but then Mom and we moved on down with Mom and them later on in the summer there, and we moved down to Blue Holler, and we was down there, and we cut wood back out there, and we were cutting wood. All of us was cutting wood there, and I tell you, times was pretty hard, and wood didn't bring very much, and I don't remember what we was getting, around $1, I think, for a rick of wood out there in the woods at that time, or maybe 75 cents. I don't know, but the guy was coming and picking it up, and that was the fellow's name was Charlie Hurd. He's passed away a long time back now, and he was married to an Indian girl, and they had 2 or 3 kids there, and we come on. We stayed there and then and way until about fall, where all my folks had contacted the Moors out there, and they somehow or another they wanted them to come back, and they wanted to go back, and I don't remember now. Maybe they didn't. No, they didn't go back to the farm. They went back to, and they was talking about going back anyway, and so we talked to this guy that was buying our wood. He had a brand new Ford truck, and so when we made a deal with him when we got enough money ahead there cutting wood. Well, he made us a good deal, and he moved us out there to Elk City again, right back to the same spot, right in the same little house that the county hauled us out of. And so, yeah, that's something, I tell you. We've been back in that same little house, and then, well, me and my wife, we was looking for a place to go, and so, but we didn't find nothing right away. Anyhow, we we put up a little tent there, just a little ways away from the house, and we there, and we was doing pretty good there, and my wife we were looking for this little guy to be born any time there, and so we just kind of in a tight spot now, really, I'll tell you for sure. And so one day there, I went to town for something, and Mom said something to me now about not going off, and she didn't explain nothing to me, and I didn't know what she was talking about or anything. She didn't say nothing, only just said maybe you shouldn't go right now, but nobody said nothing to me. I didn't know my wife was having any labor pains or anything like that, but said they must have known it, but they didn't tell me. And I went to town, and I was gone a little longer than I thought it was going to be. And when I got back, well, he was already born, and they'd already named him. So I'd been naming up till then, I'd been naming the boys as something that was a JW. So they fixed that when they told him Johnny Lee. So anyway, that was Johnny Lee. That was our third child. And anyhow, we didn't. When first time, well, we was in the house there for a few days, and the first time we took him in the tent, he couldn't stand that tent. Boy, he didn't like it scared him or something. He had to forget that idea. So went back to Mom's. So from there, well, anyhow, I can't remember just where we lived at from then on, or around there somewhere, but maybe we lived there with them. I'm not sure. We just made out back in them days, and we had cotton to pick out there. There was cotton to pick, so I remember we picked cotton for that guy. I guess that's what they did. They rented this little house from the guy and maybe furnished it to us, and we picked cotton for him. Well, we went out to pick cotton, and we're picking cotton right along there. My wife, she didn't know how to pick cotton. She never picked it in her life, so she picked a little now and then when just kind of in and out. She'd come out and pick a little while, and she'd bring the kids out with her, and well, if Mom was out there, but if Mom wasn't out there, she'd leave the baby at the house, but she'd let the kids walk out there with her. It's right there closed, and my oldest boy, Wallace, he was, I don't remember now what age he was, but he was pretty small, I know that. And see, he around 4, I guess, or something. He wanted a sack, and my wife made him, or Grandma made him one of something out of a flour sack, a little old sack or something. He called it his pick sack, and so he was he was fooling around there with that little old sack, and he got off away from us a little bit between us and my family there that was on down the road a little farther or something. He'd go up there a little bit and come back to us, and then he'd come back without his sack. He never did get no cotton in it. He didn't pick any cotton in it. Maybe a lock or two. Might have picked a lock or two and put in it, but it didn't amount to anything. And he said he lost his pick sack. Well, we never did find his pick sack, and it didn't matter anyway. He wasn't picking no cotton, but he's worried about losing his pick sack. Well, we worked on there quite a long time, and then I don't know how to keep up with the years or what there, but it wasn't too long. I know Johnny didn't do too good on his feed. We had problem with his feeding, and we didn't hardly know what to do. We kept changing it and changing it and changing it, and it just wasn't doing too good. But anyway, we found something that worked fairly well, and so we went. I don't know. We got a hold of a nice little, I think about a 26 Model T, and it was in good shape and everything. And we decided to go back to Missouri. We started to go back to her folks again. I see her dad had 10 acres of land down, 20 acres of land. He had 10 one place and 10 another, and so he was going to give her that 10 acres over there. So. So we went back there, and we thought we was going to build a house on it and whatever. And we stayed in the house with them a while till we got this little house built. It wasn't very big, and we built it. And I went and got. I think I went. I went in the woods and cut the lumber, and we hauled it to the mill, and they sawed it out for us, sawed the boards and the lumber out. And Grandpa, her daddy, Grandpa Lansdowne, he rived the boards. He called flab boards. Flab, I don't know if you've ever. They were about 2 feet long, and they was made out of blocks of wood, and they just split off little thin slabs, or about 3/4 of an inch slabs, and they call them flab boards. So we put the roof shingles. That's what we used for shingles on it, and we got that on there and everything. And by the time that it was spring again, and it was spring had got there, and so and we didn't have nothing to farm with that. To farm any of the ground there or anything, that 10 acres, but down there was an old apple orchard, and we built a little house down by the apple orchard, and so we got that all done. We was doing pretty good there, but then Johnny wasn't doing any good there, and so all of a sudden, so then we start changing his feed again. We couldn't find something that would be good for him to eat, so we got a goat. We went and got a goat and brought it there and started feeding goat milk. Well, that's just fine. He just loved it, and it was good for him. So we let him have goat milk, and I went out and looking for a horse. I was trying to find a horse. I didn't have any money, and I was trying to get a horse. And we got a day's work now and then. I got something to do, whatever. Oh, getting back to going, we didn't stay with her folks that time. We stayed a few days. I remember now. It just come to me. We didn't stay with her folks, but just a few days when we got down there, and we got a little house from Cass Roberts there, and it was just about a quarter, a half mile, I guess, about a half mile from the place that her dad gave her. Well, we lived in that for quite a long time, and then but when we got the thing built up there for on her dad's place, well, we went up there and so I went looking around for a horse because it's getting springtime and I didn't have any. So I went out and there's a horse trader over there, and I didn't have sense enough to know we wasn't supposed to get a horse from a horse trader. And so I went over there, and there was a pretty nice little mare there, I think it was a mare, I don't remember now. Anyway, it was a pretty nice little horse, and it would have done us good. I looked it over and everything, and it looked good and all that. And so I traded him that pickup for that there horse, and I don't think I rode it. I think I led it home. But it was quite a ways, about 8 or 10 miles, and I had to lead it home when I got it home. Well, that was the worst mistake I guess I ever made. Not the worst mistake, but that's one of the worst mistakes I ever made in my life, because it was a fist load horse. And, with a fist load horse, every once in a while, the whole top of their neck up there breaks out and just big sores and whatever. It wasn't fit for anything, wasn't to work, and it stink and whatever, and you never could heal it up. There's no way you could heal it up, but sometimes it healed up for a little while, and it looked like it's healed up, and it was healed up when I bought it, when I traded for it, so didn't have it but a few days until it broke out again. So anyway, well, we still had it there. I couldn't work it. Was nothing I could do with it, but there was pasture there for it to eat, and had plenty to eat. So it was eating there, but her dad had no well dug out there, a dug well out there, and they'd filled it in, but they didn't fill it completely level full. It was just a kind of a round sinkhole like, and I don't know what happened to this horse. I guess he must have. Or whatever was a horse or mare, I don't know which now. Anyway, it must have laid down with its back towards that hole or something, towards that low place or something, and it rolled off in there, I guess, and feet was up, and it couldn't get its feet under it anymore, and so it wasn't powerful enough to flip its whole body, I guess. Well, anyhow, when I looked for it all over the place, and I thought, well, surely that horse wouldn't have got out. And I looked and looked and looked and looked, and there was a sassafras brush all around the place there, quite a bit of sassafras brush, so you could have missed something like that pretty easy. And so I just kept going around and round and round, looking in different places, and I found it along about noon. It was about noontime, and it had, the sun was shining in on it, and it was real hot, and it was just so, it would sweated itself just almost to death, and so we got it up and got it out of there, and we got it out of there and got on its feet, and that horse was so scared he never laid down again. Never laid down again, and just got so tired and just wore out, and it just finally died. It just was so lost so much strength and everything, and then it never would lay down. It slept standing up, whatever it did, sleep from then on till it died. So by this time, we decided we weren't going to stay down there, so we had to go somewhere else. I guess most of it was my fault, but my wife wasn't pleased with it either. I know she wasn't pleased with it, but she probably didn't know what to do, and I didn't know what to do either. And so we went I got talking about going back to Salina again. We decided to go back to Salina, Oklahoma, and it was a little over 100 miles. And I don't remember now what we had to pay the fella, and I don't even know where we got the money or anything to pay him. But one of her man that lived, he was a son-in-law to he married one of the girls that was raised up right there within just across the road from her dad's place. And this man had a Chevrolet truck, and we got him to move us back up to Salina. See, I could always work in the store when I was around Salina there. The mom's cousins would always let me work, an hour or two or half a day on Saturday or whatever there. And back then, it didn't take much to live on. So we wanted to go back to Salina, and I talked to him, and I don't even know where we got the money now. Maybe he moved us and I paid him later. I don't even know, but he took us over to Salina, and of course he could easily go over there and back in the day, and he took us over there one morning. We got there and we unloaded. Well, we got a little house. We didn't even have no house before we went over there. I don't think. I might have went up there and got a house before, but right now I don't remember if I did or not. But we went over there and we got a little house there in Salina. Anyhow, this we wasn't there very long until we was communicating with Mom and them out there all the time, and they decided that they was going to come down, and so we'd let's see, we changed houses. Let's see, we moved. Wait a minute here. We moved. I know. We lived there for, I guess, about a year. We lived there about a year or something like that before they decided to come down there. And we had moved a couple of times. And so we lived in this one little house. We had some goats. We had goats there. We always kept the goats around after that. We had the goats around. Now, I'm skipping some of the things I'm going to have to whenever get all in here. So we had some goats, and on account of the Johnny using the goat milk, so we still had goats around there. Every time we'd stop, we'd buy a goat. And so Mom and them, they decided to move down there, and Frank Moore, he had an international truck, and this time he moved them. He moved them down, and they moved in the house with us down there. And then my stepfather, for some reason, he didn't like it down there or something. He went back out there, and he went back out there. Well, we moved to another house then, and Mom moved with us, and so I don't know what happened now, but he come back later. I know he come back not too long after that. But we moved back down there in that one little house there, right close to town, not far from the store, and then we moved again and whatever, and we moved then from there to Salina, to Locust Grove, and we moved up in Locust Grove there, and on right up on the hill from Locust Grove. It used to be right by the side of the old road that went south towards Hulbert. So we moved there, and then Mom and them, and Uncle Bert, that's my stepfather. When they come back, why they rented a house not very far from us, and they had them a cow there. In fact, they had it. Their place before we moved down to Locust Grove. They had them a place down there, and they bought them a cow. In fact, I bought the cow for my mom before he came. That's the way I bought the cow for Mama before he came back. I remember now, because she had some money and she wanted me to go buy her a cow from somebody, and so I went across the river and went some fellow I knew, I went out to see his. I'd talked to him. He said he had some cows he'd sell, and I went out and looked, and looked like a little old Holstein cow that, well, she wasn't a Holstein really. She was a kind of a black cow, but she might have been part Holstein. Anyway, she had a calf, and she wasn't giving hardly any milk, and she was so skinny and everything. And wanted $10 for her, and Mom gave me $10 to buy the cow, to buy her a cow, and she wanted a milk cow. You wouldn't think about milk cows now for $10, but she gave me $10 and told me to go buy her a cow. So I already talked to the guy, and I knew he wanted $10 for her, and he had some he wanted $15 for her. And so I went out there, and I went over there, and I talked and talked and talked, and we hum-hawed and whatever. I offered him $5, and no, he wouldn't take 5. He wanted 10, and he come down a little bit and whatever there. And I finally offered him $6, and he took me up. He took me up on the $6, and I gave him $6, and I took the cow and led her back home. It was 4 or 5 miles, and had to lead her across the Grand River Bridge and all that stuff. And I got her back over there to the house. Well, then Uncle Bert, my stepfather, came back from Western Oklahoma, back down there then, and so they got him a house down in Locust Grove. And when we moved down there, their house was about a half a mile on south of us from where we moved to. And so this little old cow, though, when they fed her up a little bit, she started giving a little bit of milk there. She was giving I suppose she was giving about 2.5 gallons of milk a day. Good rich milk, so she was well worth the money and everything. And when they moved then from there, they moved to Hulbert, and so they sold her, and they sold her for $40. And well, she was well worth $40 at the time too, but she was so little and so skinny when I bought her for $6 that you wouldn't think about her being any good. But I figured that Mom would feed her up and she'd be all right. So anyhow, there we stayed there, and I cut wood. Well, we got on welfare a little bit there for a little bit, and I had to go to the place down there where they give away some commodities, and that's back in right after they killed all those cattle, and Roosevelt got in, and they had killed all those cattle, and they bought up people's cattle and killed them and whatever, trying to get prices up. I don't know what they was doing. They canned some of that stuff, and we got 2 or 3 cans of that, and a little bit of rice and some flour or whatever, and that was free. And they had a day's work, 1 day a month. You could get, I think it was $3 or $3.50 or something like that for that 1 day's work. And it was, but it was just once a month, 1 day each month. So we was getting by on it. That's all we was living on. Anyway, but like I said, I work in a store once in a while to make a 50 cents or $1 at the store on a Saturday or something like that when they was in a rush, or anytime they was in a rush. So anyhow, I went down one day to get my little dab of commodities, and there was a family that lived back over there in the country, and their names was Patton. There was a big bunch of them, and they were filthy, sloppy, nasty-looking, big, ugly guys, all of them, and tough. So I was in line, and I'd been in line all morning. From early morning, I was in line and standing in line, waiting till it come my turn. And I was in about the middle by this time. The line was way back behind me, and this family come in, and this one old big lurk, he come in, and he got right in front of me, just took his place. He didn't even go to the back of the line, nothing. He just come and crowded in front of me, and I didn't like it at all. And I kind of fussed about it. He fussed back, and we had a little pushing match there. We didn't have a really fight. We had a little pushing match, and I just said, "Hey, I don't intend to do this ever again. I won't do it ever again because I don't think it's worth it." And so I went back there, and he had to go to Pryor to get off of the thing. And so, well, it don't look like I'd have had to got off of it if I just, I could have just not went back to get it. That's all there would have been anything said about it, I don't reckon. But I went over, and there was a gal there, and she was doing the deal, and I said, I wanted to get my name off of this thing. She said, "You can't do that. You can't live without it. You got to have that." And I said, "No way, I don't have to have that." So I took my name off of it and went back home. And I went by a feller's house that I knew that he had been sick for a long time. He was dying with, I believe he had TB or something like that. And he is just supposed to live maybe a month or two or something like that. And maybe 2 or 3 months that he was scheduled to live. And so I went by his house, and he had this old Model T truck. I knew he had this old Model T truck. It wasn't worth much, but it would run. And I told him he wanted to sell it, and of course nobody was buying it anyway. And I told him, I said, "I'll tell you what I'll do." I said, if I could buy that truck from you, I think I had $1. And I said, "I'd give you $1, and I'll give you $1 every time I can get it. I believe I can get $1 a week until it's paid." And I said, "For sure, I'll get it paid while you're still living, and it'll be a little income for you." And, he took me up. He sold it to me, and I gave him whatever I had. I think for $1, maybe it was $2. And he sold it to me for $10. And so I went home. The tires wasn't very good on it at all. You couldn't put a load of wood on it or anything. But I took the tires that was on it and cut the beads off of them and stripped the rubber off. And I went down there to a place, to a tire shop where there had been some dump trucks going through there, and one dump truck had ripped a whole. He had blown 2 tires out on one side, and they was good tires, great old big ones. They was, the same size on the inside, but the outside was bigger than them Model T truck tires is supposed to be. But they had this big rip in them, and it ripped on an angle. It was the cord that ripped. Didn't just blow a hole in it, just ripped the cord. So I took that, I stripped them out, cut the beads off of them, and it took me 2 or 3 days to do it. I got them things inside, put them inside of them tires, and I put bolts on the side there where that, put that tire in there. I got it in there without cutting it in two. I put it in there, and I went and bolted it, put a bolts on each side, 4 bolts. I put a bolt on each side of the split place, and I bolted that thing in there so it could stay. And then I took the tubes that was there, the big tubes that the guy blew out. I put the tubes in there to keep from getting any pinches, and I put the tubes back inside of them tires that come out of them. It took me a long time to ever get them back on the rim. I got them back on the rim finally, and 9 or 10 pounds of air would hold them things up. And as long as I had that truck, I never had no flat or no nothing. And I only had about 9 or 10 pounds of air in them. They'd just stand up. There was no way they'd go down unless you'd break the truck down trying to load them down. Anyhow, we were there, and I went up in the woods. And up in the woods, you could cut wood free of charging. Nobody bothered you. Just go up there, and it was free range and whatever. And you just go up there in the flats and cut wood, and I found a few sales, and I'd go up there and I'd cut a load of wood. I'd cut a rick of wood, put it on my truck, and come down. And sometimes I could do that in one day. Sometimes I couldn't, but I'd come down and I sell it for 75 cents. I get 75 cents for it. Of course, you could buy a lot more then for the money than you can now. That's for sure. Well, anyway, and some wood I'd buy from people that was cutting it, didn't have a way to haul it, and they'd sell it to me for 50 cents. And I'd load it on my truck and take it. I'd load it on my truck and take it downtown and sell it for 75 cents. So I made a quarter. And we done pretty good. I tell you for sure. And finally I got to doing a little better, and I got me a wood saw, rigged me up a wood saw. That I could cut the wood and do a little better if I'd bring the poles down. I cut the poles and bring them down. And I got the guy paid for the truck, though. I paid for the truck right away. He lived 2 or 3 months, and I got the truck paid off, though, quite a long time before he died. I got paid off in a month or two. And so I got that all taken care of, and so I got to where I could make a little bit more on the wood. I would do a little better, cut a little more wood and whatever, and we did pretty good there. And I remember one time my brother-in-law, my stepsister's husband, they lived in Arkansas, and they was up on the Magazine Mountain down there. And they wanted to move. They wanted to get out of there, and so they wanted me to come down and get them. Well, I went down after them, and with that truck, I took that truck down there, and I went down there to get them, and I finally got up there. It was way up on this mountain. I got up there, and we got them loaded up, and we come back down, and by the time I left out of Fort Smith there, Arkansas, and went up on the Magazine Mountain. I filled up my gas tank there, but when I got up on top of the hill, got their stuff and got back down. Before we got back there was a hill we had to go up to get to Fort Smith, to get to a gas station. In other words, it was so steep that the gas wouldn't feed. I wasn't out of gas, but to tank, them Model Ts is bad at that. So it wouldn't feed up that hill, and so because there was no pumps on them, the gas had to flow up there, and so we tried and we had to turn around, we had to go back. We went down there and we backed up there. We backed all the way up the hill, and we got up that, and I got him back home there, and then he worked with me there for a while. So I remember across the street from me, there was a fellow, his name was Tude Harlow, and I never did know for sure, and he had a daughter out here in California at the time, and later on we knew about the Harlow movie star being Harlow, and we know this fellow was pretty well fixed, and we knew his daughter come there in a real nice car and everything when she visited and whatever. So we don't really know whether the Jean Harlow was his daughter or not now. we just can't remember about it. When we come out, we always thought that Jean Harlow was Tude Harlow's daughter, but we can't swear to it anyway. But he lived just across the street from us, and he was an alcoholic, and he was a big guy. He was almost 7 feet tall, and he weighed about 250 or 300 pounds, and wasn't really fat. He was big guy, and he would get drunk. And I know one time when he was a nice guy, real nice fella, and he wouldn't get drunk for maybe a month, but then when he got drunk, he'd stay drunk a week or two. And I know one time that he got drunk, his wife run over there and said that she thought he was going to die. He was in the floor and they couldn't do nothing with him. Me and my brother-in-law run over there. We run over there and he was drunk what he was, and he passed out, and they had a hot fire in the house. They had the wood stove, and they'd got real warm, and he just passed out. And they couldn't move him or nothing, and we just took him. I took one arm, he took the other, and it was all we could do to drag that man. We drug him right out on the porch, and it was ice. There was ice on the porch even. We just drug him out on the porch. It didn't take him very long to come to. And my brother-in-law moved away then. My folks moved down to Holbert, and they moved with him. So we stayed there. We still was there at Locust Grove. And so anyhow, as Tude Harlow, after I was hauling poles down out of the mountains, out of the hills up there, he wanted to go out with me. He'd visit with me and talk with me, and there just wasn't a nicer fellow in the whole country. You couldn't have found a nicer fellow. So lots of people was afraid of him, though. I remember when he lived in the country down there near Blue Holler. He lived in the country down there, and he was, I don't know. I guess he'd just get drunk and kind of carouse and something, whatever, and if people were afraid of him, anyhow, he would come over and he'd talk to me and everything, and he'd want to go out with me. And I told him, sure, you can go out with me, but I can't make enough money to pay you nothing. He said, oh, I just want to work with you. I just want to be with you. And he'd go with me, and sometimes he'd work with me for a week or two at a time, and free of charge. He'd go out there and stay all day. But when he did that, he wouldn't drink. He wouldn't fool around about drinking or anything. And he just somehow or another, he just said he liked to be with me. He appreciated being with me. So, sometimes we'd go out there and we'd cut. Well, he'd work, turn out about twice as much work as me anyway. But, and we'd go out there and work, and we'd cut us a load of them poles. We get these poles that's about 8 inches in diameter at the bottom, and we'd cut them down, and we'd trim them up, and then we'd just put them on a truck, and if they was too long, we'd cut them in two and then load them that way, make two out of one. So when we come back, when we start back in, if it's sometime after rain or something, it's those places out there in those flats, it was kind of chalky like ground or something when it was wet, and you never could tell what the ground was going to do. You might stay up and you might not stay up. Sometimes the thing would jump into a soft place when you're coming out of there, and you get in a soft place you wouldn't know about it till you got there, and the back end of that with a load on it, the back end of it would sink down. So sometimes we unloaded that truck twice and moved it. And we'd move it up on hard ground and load it again. And before we'd get out of there, maybe we'd sink it again and then have to unload it and then load it back on. He never did seem to mind a bit. He just had a lot of fun. I mean, it was really fun working with him and everything. So when of course, if he wasn't working with me, though, he'd get drunk after a day or two, maybe he'd get drunk. But, And when the one time summertime come around, and I went with Brother Ivy quite a lot, and he was a preacher, and I kind of felt the calling too, and I'd go with him, and we'd preach in whatever, and we wasn't making any money or nothing like that, and we got little offerings or something. But anyway, I wanted to go back to California so bad because I was out there before, and it'd been about 9 years then now since I'd been out there, and so I didn't know just what to do. And well, right there, what I was going to say a while ago when we was across the street from Harlow's there. Anyway, that was 1934. I believe it was 1934 when Wiley was born there, and I